Hello everyone. I have a little fun video for you guys today with some exciting news at the beginning. So let's look at this news update. So look what Graham Hancock tweeted earlier. Further evidence for the cosmic impact that caused a global cataclysm near the end of the last ice age and perhaps wiped an entire advanced civilization from the record. I have to agree. And that's pretty compelling evidence, and that might not be the only evidence. There may be more, right? But that's a big smoking gun, and that confirms what we're talking about. And if you want a more in-depth video on that, check out Matt's recent video, and he will get you more filled in on the details. Today, I want to talk about something else on the other side of the world. And I recommend watching Praveen Mohan's most recent video on the Isuru. Let's let him say it.
Hey guys, I'm at the Isuru Munya temple.
Isuru Munya. Okay, so look at this place. He talks about this feature in particular. This place is amazing. I had never heard of it before today. Now, first, what do you notice about this cave? We'll call it a cave in quotes, okay? This cave. Well, I see a square hole and I see some processing marks, and then I look down here at this stone at the bottom and I see repeating scratch marks, and they look pretty uniform to me. And in Praveen's video, he will tell you, but I'll go ahead and show you too. This is obviously, and you know, someone made this arch. It does look pretty good. There's, I believe there's mortar in between it, so I'm not sure about the attribution, the time period. But beyond this arch, there are ceiling slabs, and these ceiling slabs are huge. And then at the end of this cave, in quotes, there is a wall of blocks, dry laid stones, and a couple of them have square holes at corners. So I found that very interesting. And he goes to talk about the ultrasonic properties of this site. And for some reason, bats are attracted to it, even though it's not a very dark space. A lot of bats seem to congregate in this area. So that's really interesting to me. And he goes into some of those more, I guess you would call them outlandish proposals, but a lot of these sites in Sri Lanka and India, they have some really odd layouts, and you know, some of these proposals, let's just keep an open mind on them and let's hear them out and see where the evidence takes us. So he talks about this in particular. This is the entire site. It is, I guess you could say it's a bedrock structure. You'll see some pictures in a little bit that shows before this structure was created, and it's gonna be pretty interesting, I think, guys. But this is a rock carved site, and then block additions, and I'm not sure about the time period of the structure in the foreground, and then of course there's a large pool that surrounds this, and I'm not sure when to attribute that either. I'm gonna have to assume that at least this foundation and this border ring of stones that makes up this pool are original. And I might even go as far as to say this artwork might be original to this site. And we're going to see some close-ups of that in a minute. So first, let's take a close-up at this cave he's talking about. You can see these giant rocks that they're carved out of. And this is about as close as I can get, guys, to this upper element. It looks like crudely placed stones. I'm not sure what to make of this. This looks like mortar to me. I'm gonna have to assume that this arch is much later. But these ceiling slabs that are beyond, you'll have to watch his video to see those. Those have to be much, much older. So the other side of this is, I guess we'll call this some kind of fountain or waterfall feature. Either, I guess we'll call it a modified natural feature, right? Now what do you see right away? A big square indentation and processing marks. And below you see another square indentation, a smaller one. And then you start looking other places and you'll see another square indentation. And this line, I believe, is actually a processing line. I don't believe that's natural. We'll see other pictures with different lighting. But the artistic representations are a little family of elephants. These are really well done over here, and these aren't, this one's not too bad either, but this is a 3D, whereas this is more of a 2D, but very nicely done. And I guess we might even call these bevel blocks, guys. I don't know if we're going to put that in the album. I'm not sure of the attribution of this structure, but hey, look at that, blocks that are beveled. And a little water spout like we see at some other sites. Just interesting. And then, of course, this is the other piece of art, this little guy up here, and we'll see a close-up of him later. So, again, this is the entire site. You see this structure in the front is rebuilt, or we'll call this an addition. It utilizes some of the rock cut features, but everything you see that is not rock or that is light colored and this roof is an addition off of the bedrock. So it's kind of confusing at first. You're like, is this a freestanding structure? But you see this this line that goes down, this silver flashing. It's on both sides, and that is actually where the roof mates up against the rock. So we'll see that a little more in a minute. And again, this giant piece of rock that's just been worked. Very strange. Another angle. You can see here, this hole, I'm going to say that's artificial. This hole, I'm going to say is artificial. This one, obviously, and this little square one underneath, I'm going to say is artificial as well. Perhaps even up here, these two lines, I'm going to have to assume are either artificial and processed, or these were put in to prevent cracking of a natural geological feature. I don't know. Those square anomalies are strange to me. They're on their diagonal, whereas these are, parallel with the ground. So, another angle, you can really see. I'll try to zoom in even more to, nail home the point. This is a square artificial carving. This is a square artificial carving. The processing on the artwork is very uniform as it goes around. I know this picture breaks up, but it's very interesting. The processing around the art seems to me to match the processing around these odd square features. Here's that other piece of art. You'll notice, let me see if I can zoom out for you guys. There is a horse head relief behind him. That's pretty impressive. And you can see the lines, how this was done. It looks kind of weird to me. It looks a little melted. Maybe it's just old and eroded. This guy looks pretty good shape, pretty good condition. Really detailed carving, even down to his toes, right? He's got the big spools in his ears, the long ears. This more than likely is original art, I'm going to assume. And here's another feature nearby. I'm not sure how close this is, guys, but again, it's in Sri Lanka. There are a lot of these odd rock cut structures in Sri Lanka. You can see these processing lines, obviously. And here, obviously, artificial processing lines. And I believe this is a natural form of a cornice or a coping. So what would happen here is, because they did this, the water would drop there, drip off, and everything beyond this lighter stone underneath would stay dry. That kind of reminds me of some things that go on, at Mesa Verde, right? That the way they lived underneath a rock outcrop. I'd like to look closer at that and see if there's any processed coping or cornice, whatever you would call that, processing. There's another site in Sri Lanka that Praveen goes over. It's a very large outcrop of rock. I think it's called Sigiriya, and it also has these natural copings or drainage systems, gutter systems. And what it reminds me of, guys, is some of these places in South America also, these little rock cut temples that are just oddly shaped and they have odd motifs in them. This one is at Machu Picchu. It's underneath that temple that has the bedrock, the enshrined around it. This is underneath it. Isn't that pretty interesting? Does anyone tell you that there's a space underneath that crazy temple above? And then this other spot, and this has that altar stone out of picture. That it's the dark stone with the Andean cross motif and the knobs on it, and the top's been dynamited off. That is this site. And again, it's just a strange niche that's been cut into the bedrock, modified, some natural, some modified, right? So I think that whatever's going on in these cases might be going on at this site in Sri Lanka as well. Now, what really hit home for me was when I looked at this picture. Now look at that. That is amazing. This is before it was restored, they say. Now, this is really interesting. You can see square hole anomalies here, these up here, and this line. I think that's a natural gutter system, perhaps, right? So that water coming down would hit that and run off the sides, and they wouldn't need an actual structure. And I think that's what's going on over here on the left-hand side as well. You see these natural, these modified natural features that turn them into gutters. So that's really interesting. And there's more processing, I think, right? Like straight lines and different things going on here. And these blocks up here look pretty old at this point. Now they look a little bit better than in the pictures we saw. So this is probably the original configuration with these 4 sticking out at the top. That's interesting. So niches cut in, and this rounded entrance, that's kind of unique. I don't see that many places. And again, this lower structure, it looks like it's been through an earthquake. So this might be pretty old. That's interesting to me. And these diamond motifs, you saw that when they rebuilt the structure or restored it and put the canopy over it. They incorporated the diamond motif into the shingles. The diamond motifs in the shingles. So it's interesting how these hallmarks repeat. And see, over here they've made another structure that utilizes the same gutter system. So just interesting. You've got to look at the sites before and after they've been restored. Maybe even up here, these 2 little spots, maybe those are artificial. Just lots of strange, maybe processing all over the stone. What does that say? How old are these? And what was the original intention? The artwork is so well preserved. You have to assume some of these are just simple little, maybe anchored points for attaching metal structures, or who knows, right? Art could be anything. But just thought that was a really interesting site. I had never seen it before, and thanks to Praveen for showing me. And I'm going to try to categorize this and catalog it somehow. We'll try to figure out how. Maybe we'll put it in the square hole catalog gallery, or we'll use the pick marks and put it in that gallery. I don't know. This is kind of a weird site, but there's something going on that's ancient about this site that's connected to what we're talking about. So, well, that's all for today, guys. We'll try to get back to the Bevel block list and finish that up soon, and we'll investigate some of these other topics a little bit more thoroughly. So, thanks for hanging out with me again, and we'll talk to you next time.